ask you a question? Because I check back in on Ukraine and all I hear is bad news. Definitely the Russians have taken a bunch of losses and Putin's got some problems when it comes to finding new personnel. But how does this end?
That is the most important question. And frankly, it's the one that most people aren't asking, right? I mean, it just, you look at it and you go, okay, we get it. It's very emotive. We're all waving the Ukraine flag. Everyone's been impressed with the courage and the fortitude. NATO has shown terrific resolve, right? And in fact, Putin played the NATO angle completely wrong, right? And he started this invasion in part to show how weak NATO is. And he was hoping to fracture NATO. And of course, he had backfired completely on Putin. Now NATO is unified. They've added to their membership. But despite the emotion, despite everyone saying, yes, of course, Ukraine needs to win. Of course, Zelensky is saying the obvious, which is when we take back all our territory, including Crimea, that's when we've won. But the reality is that we need to be having some pragmatic discussions about what a settlement looks like, because the idea that Putin will willingly give up Crimea in particular it's just not in the cards.
No
and
way.
So
no.
we're at day 550 plus in this war. We're entering the winter season, which means soon we'll be in the third year of this conflict. So
God.
Your question is spot on, and it doesn't distract or it doesn't take away from the bravery and the courage and the importance of what is happening there with Ukraine. But it is the real world where you have to ask those questions.
Meanwhile, two of our foes, Russia and North Korea, are getting cozier and cozier. And despite North Korea's promise not to arm the Russians in connection with this battle with Ukraine, they appear to be getting ready to do it. And so our U.S. National Security Advisor, Jake Sullivan, warned NOCO that providing weapons to Russia would not reflect well on North Korea. What do you make of that?
Yeah, well, I'm sure Kim Jong-un, probably the dear leader, probably sat there and goes, he's right. This is not going to reflect well. So we have to rethink our position.
Going to be on our permanent record.
Yeah, they're gonna send us a harshly worded memo. So yeah, I think the relationship that's building, right, this blossoming romance between Putin and Kim Jong-un over the recent past, it makes sense from a strategic point of view for both sides, right? Mm-hmm. So Russia needs to resupply their weapons inventory, their munitions in particular. Their stockpiles have been depleted at an incredible rate. And North Korea is one of the few places they can turn to at this point. North Korea, on the other hand, needs hard currency. They need food. They need energy. So that part of it makes sense. It doesn't make it any less worrisome, but it is not unexpected. And now you have, sitting over the top of that blossoming relationship, you have China. And, according to some South Korean intel sources, Russia recently suggested that North Korea join China and Russia in joint military exercises. So that relationship needs to be watched very carefully.
That's a nightmare. That's a nightmare triad that we'd really like to avoid of some of the world's worst actors. Another thing I know you guys covered, and this is, of course, on the minds of a lot of Americans as of last month, but the 2-year mark of losing our 13 service personnel in Afghanistan and the disastrous withdrawal. A book has come out, a journalist, Frank Foyer, and it's called The Last Politician. And it writes about what went down as that one piece of tape that we all saw was airing, with the plane leaving the tarmac out of Afghanistan and these civilians and translators and kids trying to hold on to the exterior of the plane as it took off. It was absolutely devastating. And they reveal that at the time, Anthony Blinken was chilling in the Hamptons. Press Secretary Jen Psaki was beachside with her family. However, after seeing that footage, she made the executive decision to cut her beach time short and return to the White House. So it appears they were all over it, Mike. They were ready. I mean, that happened in the middle of the withdrawal. It was very foreseeable that danger was coming to our personnel, our military, and our friends over there.
Yeah, it was right in the thick of things, right? President Biden had taken off for Camp David. 3 days later, right, Ghani, the head of Afghanistan at the time, fled because he was rightly concerned about his own safety. So like the coward that he is, he took off. So Biden was sitting in Camp David. Now, admittedly, you can do command and control from Camp David. It's got that capability. But yeah, our Secretary of State's in the Hamptons. Our primary White House spokesperson is sitting on the beach. How tough is it? And this is not a ding against a particular administration. Any administration, right, that's looking and is staring down the barrel of a withdrawal from a war-torn country where we know our foe is knocking at the door, right? It was no surprise at that point that the Taliban was moving on Kabul, right? So how tough is it to cancel leave and say, you know what, everybody, all hands to the pump, we're sticking around the White House because this thing may head south very quickly. So they didn't do that. I think it's just an indication of sort of the level of sophistication of their national security team and the advice they were getting at the time. The idea that somehow the Afghan military was going to hold together. Look, we knew for years that we were having the same problems that the Russians had, the Soviets had when they were in Afghanistan, right? Corruption, poor morale, leadership problems, command and control. They couldn't hold the urban centers, right? They couldn't hold the countryside. I mean, we repeated some of the same problems that the Soviets had. The Soviets spent 5 years trying to get out of Afghanistan because of the same problems we experienced. So it was
not the best time to be.
Insightful look. Yeah, it was a very insightful look by the author.
Junk science. That's what the doctor called many of those fruit and vegetable supplements on the market. Junk science because they use extracts of common produce department fruits and veggies with few health benefits. But I want to tell you about Field of Greens. Field of Greens is different. They use the whole organic fruit and vegetable, not a watered down supplement. And it's backed by a better health promise, which I'm going to tell you about. Each ingredient in Field of Greens was scientifically chosen to support vital organs like heart, lungs, and kidney health. Others support your immune system, blood pressure, metabolism, and healthy weight loss. Their better health promise is simple. The next time you're at the doctor for a checkup, if the doc doesn't say, hey, you're looking healthier than before, you get your money back. That's a deal right there. So let me get you started with 15% off. Visit fieldofgreens.com and use my promo code MK. That's promo code MK at fieldofgreens.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.